to survivors of a plane crash. What was it like?
Story 1.
I was in a small plane crash when I was a teenager. It was a Cessna 182 high-wing, fixed wheels that had catastrophic engine failure at about 10,000 feet at dusk. We were too far from any airports, and the roads were too busy with rush hour traffic plus power lines you can't see at that time of day, so this situation required the pilot to glide the plane one shot at this to land in a small field. We landed, lost a lot of speed, went airborne on a small hill, landed on nose wheel which promptly snapped off, and then the plane flipped upside down. We all walked away, but it was a terrifying few minutes from when the engine made a loud bang, sparks were flying, and the pilot shut it down until we landed. Elated feelings afterward?
Story 2.
It was October 23rd, and a bit chilly up in Canada. My friend flight instructor was ferrying a Cessna 152 from Ottawa down to the plane's new owner in Florida somewhere. Well, we never made it. On the first leg, we were headed for Rochester, New York. We thought about going over Lake Ontario, but the altitude, we would need to safely glide to one side of the lake or the other wasn't a reasonable option. I was racking up the time when we heard a loud bang, then the power cut. I mean, a 152 doesn't have a lot of power to begin with, but this really wouldn't go. Shortly thereafter, the propeller just started to spin freely. My friend took over, and we found a somewhat reasonable field to put it down. On the way down, there was a power line that came out of nowhere, and we had to do a roller coaster move to get over it. Not many other options. It's funny how much time you don't have, or how fast the time actually goes when you're headed down. Anyway, it thankfully was a somewhat uphill roll for landing, and we called the old owner to let him know. All in all, I was pretty calm for the whole thing, but it was an interesting ride. Later, we found out it was a piston that blew.
Story 3.
I don't know if considered a crash, as I was on a Qantas flight A380 when the engine blew up. QF32 was the flight. It was a really big story back when it happened. We were flying from Singapore to Australia. I think it was early November 2010. Everything seemed normal, but then we heard a loud boom. Then another one after that. Everyone kind of shouted out, all like cried out momentarily in shock, but everyone was mostly calm. We didn't really know what was going on. Someone actually filmed the left wing, and through kind of Chinese whispers I heard them saying, there was a hole in the wing. I couldn't see it, but I was a bit concerned after that. I watched a lot of air crash investigations TV show, so I knew it was pretty bad having a hole in the wing, because fuel and hydraulics run in the wing, but I didn't realize how bad it actually was. I was on the right side about midway down the plane, but behind the wings, can't remember the seat number, but it was a pretty bad seat. We were still flying okay, so I thought, hey, it can't be too bad. We might make it, but I was still concerned. I heard someone else say they could see smoke coming out of engine after the bangs. I could see it from the camera, which sits up on the tail section, which you can see on your TV screen. One of the captains came on and told us that there was a problem with engine number 2 and said they were working on it, and they would get back to us. He sounded like he was trying to be calm, but I knew it was bad because one of the pilots walked back into our cabin and looked out the window. He must have been looking at the wing. We still flew for another few hours, but eventually we landed back in Singapore. We couldn't see the damage when we got off, but I saw pictures later and the entire engine cowling was ripped off, and there were multiple holes in the wings. The plane was so badly damaged I was shocked. I was so bloody lucky we had a good crew who were experienced enough to get the plane down. That plane had serious damage, and I'm really lucky to be alive. The captain's name is Richard de Crespigny. He's a great man. I will fly Qantas again on A380 next year from Sydney to LA and back, and I have full confidence in them.
Story 4.
Didn't happen to me, but happened to two close friends married who were flying in a single prop from Zambia to Botswana. Aid, my good chum, was being flown by his boss in the oil business to take a break on his ranch. In the plane, his wife Amanda and the boss's son as co-pilot. Amanda hated flying in single props, so took a sleeping tablet and was out for the count with her head on Aid's lap, Sparko. So over Botswana the engine cuts out and the pilot cannot get it restarted, and despite having plenty of experience starts to lose control. He announces that they are going to crash land, and it is obvious to all in the plane except for the sleeping beauty in the back that there is no way they can land safely. It's all rocks and trees. They realized then that they were all going to die or be horribly injured. This is the odd bit. Aid told me that he felt very, very odd, almost happy. He said that he felt sad to be going but felt no anger or fear, just a peaceful realization of his own ending. In fact, he said it reminded him of being very opiated. He calmly wondered whether he should wake his wife up, but felt there was no point in waking her up to tell her she was going to die, so he told her he loved her and stroked her hair all the way down. They hit the ground, hard, bounced, hit again, and then hit a tree. The pilot died on the spot. His co-pilot was very badly injured. Aid and Amanda walked away virtually unhurt. They both had lots of bruising, but no broken bones except ... Aid's decision to leave his wife on his lap cost him dear. When they hit the ground, her head bounced up and smashed him under the chin, causing him a split lip and tongue plus several £1,000 worth of radical dentistry. The plane was then raided by the locals, who stole everything including all their paperwork and passports, making it hard to prove who they were in a foreign country. They got medevaced out of there and only required some sedation before being picked up by a friend and taken to the another ranch to chill out for a week. As they pulled up at the ranch gate, they noticed that it was adorned with 3 props, all bent and broken with the blades bent back. The owner just handed them a bottle of Johnny Walker, smiled, and told them that it happens a lot. Aid eventually gave in to the African disease of drinking all day, almost killed himself before getting help. He is now divorced and a gas fitter in Gloucestershire. Amanda went on to run AIDS programs in Zambia and Uganda.
Story 5.
I've posted about this before in a similar thread, but I was in a small plane crash during skydive operations a few years ago. Just after takeoff, we lost power. We were heading directly at a Walmart, at around 600 feet and losing altitude. The pilot made an abrupt 90-degree turn to the left. I originally thought we were turning sharply to avoid other traffic, or that air control had vectored us off for some reason, but quickly realized the engine was stopping. The left wing dipped pretty sharply as he put the flaps down, and I ended up looking down into the parking lot of an abandoned grocery store. I remember thinking that if we came down in that parking lot, the light posts would probably act like cheese graters to our plane. The jumper in front of me, who was sitting with his back to the dash, looked over to the pilot, who confirmed we were in trouble, and then back at us and told us to brace for impact. The pilot was aiming for a small grass lot behind a gas station. Unfortunately, we didn't clear the power lines or the pole itself. I didn't have my seatbelt on, or my helmet on, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to try to buckle or put my helmet on. I realized there wasn't going to be time, and I just tried to brace myself by grabbing the door frame. I felt the tandem instructor in back grab the back of my rig. I knew I was probably dead. I wasn't scared, but I was incredibly disappointed. I never expected that I'd actually die skydiving, or ever, really. The last thing I remember seeing before I bounced off the roof of the plane was the right wing skipping off a wooden pole as it splintered. I was all groggy for a bit, but came to hanging over the pilot seat. The door had popped open and thrown him to the ground, then swung back shut over his legs. We had to kick it out and walk over his chest to get out, but we went back and tried to drag him away from the plane. We just filled up, and a full load of fuel was pouring all over the parking lot we'd landed in. Having just hit a power line, we just assumed it was going to blow up. He brushed our hands off him and went back into the plane to get his hat and some documents. He seemed completely unfazed for having just crash-landed a plane through a power pole. We all got away with nothing more than a few bruises and a minor concussion. I stopped jumping for about 16 months. The drop zone closed down, was purchased by a different owner, got a new plane, and reopened. I started jumping again shortly afterwards.
Story 6.
I didn't actually crash, but I did have a mishap. A few years ago I was learning to fly glider planes. To summarize quickly, a glider plane is a motorless plane that gets towed into the air with a winch. While you're being towed, the plane is pointing 45 degrees up and you disconnect the cable. When you're over the winch, once you disconnect, you pitch the nose of the plane forward so the plane is level instead of pointing up. Pointing the nose up loses speed, and once your speed falls below a certain level, the plane stalls and falls instead of glides. Anyway, I was going up with my instructor in the seat behind me. Business as usual. I disconnect the cable, and instead of a clean disconnect, there's a bang so loud that I thought I must have ripped a hole in the glider. I'm frantically looking around, and in doing so I forget to aim the nose of the plane downwards. So the plane is still nose up, losing speed fast while I'm distracted, until it slows down below stall speed and the plane stalls. Now it's just falling almost backwards since we're pointing up. We're weightless. In free fall, the plane starts to tumble. Blue sky, green earth. Blue sky, green earth. It's picking up speed, fast as we're falling, and alarms start bleeping. Dials and meters start spinning circles. The wings start groaning. And here's where I really fuck up. I remember if you're going too fast, pull the stick back to bring the nose up and slow down. Which is true, except in this case, I'm not flying too fast. I'm falling too fast. I pull the stick back, bring the nose up and lose speed again, bringing me into another stall and sending the plane tumbling again. This repeats twice, until I hear my instructor behind me, in a complete deadpan voice, groans getting close. Got a plan? And at this point I just feel like a scared animal. My mind is blank. The only thing that I could think of just made it worse, and I reply equally deadpan. I'm terribly sorry, but I haven't got a clue what I'm doing at the moment. Instructor nods, takes the stick, just pushes it straight forward. The plane makes a nauseating dive, bringing the nose around. We pick up speed again. And speed is the key here, really. The glider just needs a minimum speed so it can glide instead of fall. As soon as my instructor has the plane right side up and going, fast enough, the whole thing just levels out, and we're gliding smooth as silk. That day I learned that the urge to stagger out of a plane, fall to your knees and hug the ground is not a movie trope. You will do that under the right circumstances.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.